Louis, or more specifically, beautiful Danville, Illinois, which has returned to winter today for 24 hours and should be back to spring tomorrow. And you're watching Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And today we have our guest, Krys Copeland. Welcome, Krys.
Thank you. And the same thing is happening here in the Netherlands. We're having one weirdly cold day out of the middle of like weirdly warm days. So yeah, it was not fun walking with the dog today. Not nearly as fun as last week anyway.
It's 29 degrees Fahrenheit here. Yesterday it was 70. Tomorrow it's supposed to be back up around 70, but today it's 29.
It was right around freezing here,
Yeah.
at 2 degrees Celsius. So I think that's what 36 or something like that
Yep.
Fahrenheit. And yeah, it was. It had been 10 or 12 degrees the last week, which is roughly 50, between 50 and 55
Yep.
in Fahrenheit. So much nicer last week, and hopefully it returns to those temperatures starting tomorrow. Yeah.
You know, we've overall had a pleasantly mild winter. Hello to Antonio in the chat room. It's good to see you,
Hi,
Antonio.
Antonio. Good to see you.
And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you're watching on, and they will show up here. And hello to Mary in the chat room. It's good to see
Hi,
you,
Mary.
And
Good to see
I love
you.
saying hello to everyone. And so please feel free to say hello, ask any questions you may have. Tell us how your weather's doing. We do have that little what would we call it? Good Morning Pagan show attitude going. Hello to Lafayette Street Media. Good to see you, Lafayette.
Hi, Lafayette Street Media. Good to see you. Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about astrology and
Yes.
your new astrology book. So if anyone has any questions about astrology, if maybe you saw something in your own natal chart that you didn't quite understand, then pop that into the chat, and we will use Reverend Don's book to answer your questions today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Mary tells us it's 82 degrees where she is,
Nice.
which is in Florida.
Yeah.
And Antonio says it's cold.
And the Europeans in the chat are going, "Oh my god."
Well, that's true. These are Fahrenheit degrees that we're throwing out. Yeah. And Mary says this is her favorite subject. Now, if you don't have a chart, if you're not familiar with your chart, we wanted to suggest that you might go to Cafe Astrology, cafeastrology.com.
Yes, I'm going to put that in the chat here as well. They offer free natal charts. You don't have to fill in any details that you don't want to, so you can, use a different name if you want for privacy reasons, and you're able to see your chart immediately, so it's not emailed to you or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's great for, privacy reasons. That way it's completely untraceable. It's not your date of birth and all the sensitive information being connected to you.
Yeah.
And that's a resource that we mentioned in the resources of the book as well.
Mm-hmm.
So along with a handful of other resources that you've cultivated over the years, Reverend Don.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember that we had our original discussions on this around the fact that you were inspired by a much older book that you had on astrology.
And I happen to have it right here, actually.
Wonderful.
Let me pop out of the screen for a moment, and I will hold that up for everybody. Heaven Knows What by Grant Louis from, I believe, 1936. This is not the 1936 copy. But yeah, that was the thing that inspired me to write this book, because of all the books of astrology I've had, it was the most helpful. And it's simple do-it-yourself astrology by the standards of the 1930s, when they didn't have computers to tell them what their chart was. And he had a very interesting way of doing a chart that did not require all of the heavy math. He had done the math and created a series of tables to use. And hello to Janet in the chat room.
Hi,
And
Janet.
Janet says, we had a tornado last night.
Oh no.
Temperature dropped from 60s to 40s, high winds most of the day.
I hope everyone
Hope
is
everyone's all
safe.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting weather times.
Hmm.
I I knew what today was going to be, but I was still horrified when I woke up. Um, Although, I mean, it's still February. I mean, this is what we would normally expect, but it's been so pleasant as we move into a future of very different seasons.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Ones we're still figuring out as we go.
Yep. Janet says we're safe. We're glad to hear that, Janet.
Good, Janet. Good to hear.
And hello to Steve.
Hi, Steve. Good to see you. Yeah, so if you have questions about your own chart, go into Cafe Astrology, create your chart, and let us know what you see. I know one thing that was new for me when I started using the Cafe Astrology chart to compare to what is in your book and see, you know, how well does this align to me. I noticed that there was something new in the Cafe Astrology natal chart listings. In addition to all of course, the planetary ones, there was the northern node and the southern node, so I got to learn a lot about those. But also the Black Lilith, which is still fairly new. So, and we had discussed that, and we decided to add another section to the book to discuss Black Lilith and the nature of that influence on your chart.
Yeah, I tend in most ways to be a fairly traditional astrologer, and the nodes are very traditional. But during the 20th century, or the latter part of the 20th century, a lot of astrologers started working with asteroids and things like that, things like Chiron and Lilith, and I decided we thought it would be a good idea to include Lilith. I did not include all of the asteroids because honestly, I think it's more than you need to be doing. Um, at least more than this book was going to hold because we already have 263 entries. And hello to Donna in the chat room. It's good to see you, Donna.
Hi, Donna, and hopefully everyone in West Virginia stays safe tonight during this tornado watch.
Yes. Thunderstorms, hail, and high winds here, Steve says.
Yeah, we hope everyone in Tennessee is safe tonight.
Yes.
Or the rest of the day. I guess it's still daytime there.
It's daytime here.
Yeah.
And hello to Mark in the chat room.
Hi, Mark. Good to see you.
And we might want to point out that Krys is joining us from the Netherlands, where it is not daytime.
No, it's 7 o'clock, and it still gets dark right around 6 still. But yeah, it's getting lighter each day, so it's nice to see that spring is coming. It's on its way. Yeah. But I'd like to go ahead and share my screen here to show everyone what the book looks like in its current form. This won't be its final form. Reverend Dawn is still going through and adding drawings and editing and changing things here and there. But you'll get a good idea of what to expect in the final draft. And we'll just start here. I don't have all the table of contents listed yet, but I can actually just refresh this and get them all. And I'll re-edit the font at some other time. So as you can see, it's quite lengthy. That 200 and what was it, 56 entries total? 63 entries total.
I counted them.
Yes, yeah. There's quite a few different subtopics underneath the chapters, but chapter 1 is a basic introduction for how to understand astrology, the roots of astrology, and the additional information that you will get from going into your full natal chart versus just reading your horoscope in the paper every week. Um, and then we've kind of done this design where we give a bit of a hint with each entry about what you'll find within that. So, like the cosmic blueprint here, you'll learn how to decipher your astrological chart. We'll break down both the art as well as the science behind it, and where you will need to, develop skills versus talents.
Mhm.
And then in chapter 3, we have the celestial characters going through each of the sun signs in detail.
Yep.
And then, yeah, we continue on from there with each of the planets and their influence. The aspects of astrology, what they different types of aspects are, and what they will mean. Whether this is something that creates tension in your chart, something that will be a struggle for you, or if it's something that might smooth the way for you in that process,
Yes,
or
indeed.
in the journey of life. Yeah. And then we have holistic chart interpretation. So being able to take the different things that you see on the chart and weave them into a narrative for the person that you're reading for, whether that's yourself or someone else. As well as deciphering the planetary positions and the way they aspect with each other. We've actually noted every single one down. So every possible combination of planetary aspects is
Yes.
listed with a short interpretation of that. Yeah.
Now, I did follow heaven knows what, in the sense that the trines and the sextiles are kind of combined, in that a sextile is basically the same thing at a smaller level. So we don't have a totally separate section on sextiles, because if we did, this would be a much longer book.
Yes. Yeah.
But you'll see that when you read the book.
Yeah.
And there are
Honest,
some smaller aspects we did not include for the same reason.
and so we could probably create a part 2 to this book of astrology series here, because there's just so much information that we, could have included, but it would have, doubled the length and the cost of the book. So
Yes.
we wanted to keep it affordable for people. And
Astrology has been around for 3,000 years. There's a lot you can write about astrology.
yeah, exactly.
I
And
mean,
I'm
we,
really,
we could have had a section on the difference between sidereal and tropical astrology, and I believe we remark upon it, but that could be a book by itself.
yeah, absolutely.
And hello to Reverend Charles. Good to see you,
Reverend
Charles.
Charles, good to see you. Yeah, one thing I was really excited about this going through this was that I could see what your plan was for how
Hmm.
this could be expanded onto other topics. And
Hmm.
so you started out with your Book of Questions series, and
Yeah.
then the Correllian Book of the Dead, and then building with the Book of Astrology. And it's really building out into a well-rounded, robust series
Hmm.
that can, take a beginner practitioner into deeper levels of understanding.
Yes. That's basically the idea. So after this, there'll be another. After that, there'll be another, and we're going to go through as much as we can, and however much time the universe allows us to do so.
Yeah.
I expect I'll be writing books for a long time.
And I'm actually very curious in the chat if you could let us know. Would you prefer Reverend Don write an astrology book part 2, a more advanced guide? Would you prefer him to write numerology, tarot, something else completely?
Palmistry,
Yeah, exactly. Toss in the chat
mediumship.
your mediumship, exactly. We'd be
Um,
very curious to
yeah,
see what you're looking for right now.
yeah, because what the next book is not going to be decided until this one is out, and then we will address it. And all of those different subjects, I think, are going to become books, but the question is which one in which order.
Mary
Mary
says all
says,
of the above. Yeah.
and Charles says numerology and astrology part 2 would be great.
Excellent. Yeah, and if you haven't pre-ordered your copy of the Book of Astrology, the website is in the chat. You can go and secure your copy there,
Hmm.
and those will be shipping out in late March. So very excited to see the final version.
And Antonio votes for mediumship.
Good topic, very good topic, and a lot to say on it too. So,
Yeah, I have a lot to say about mediumship because I'm not a believer in oogie boogie anything, but particularly oogie boogie mediumship. I think there are people who portray it the way you'd see it in a horror film rather than in reality. In reality, working with the spirits of the dead is not a frightening or difficult thing. It's when you see seances in films, everything is always dark and everybody is holding hands and the table is rocking. And yes, spiritualists have been known to do all of those things.
mm,
Some other people have been known to do all of those things, but um, none of them is necessary. All the term seance means is sitting. You sit for the spirits, you receive their messages, and you can do it literally anywhere, and I have. Although you shouldn't try to do it while you're driving. And we want to say hello to Tom in the chat room.
hi Tom, good to see you. And yeah, as far as the mediumship go, I know you touch on it a bit
Hmm.
throughout the Book of the Dead,
Yeah.
actually, and ways to connect with ancestors through Correllian ceremonies. That was
Hmm.
really fascinating to see. Um, yeah.
I've found myself. The house I'm currently living in definitely has some spiritual activity in it. Some of it's canine, and there's a particular spirit of an older woman who lives here on the top floor with me. And we don't mostly have any interaction. Other people mostly see her. She minds her business. I mind my business. We get along fine. But I was sitting in a Zoom conference with, well, it wasn't Zoom, but it was a video conference with Lady Alyssa. And she remarked on the spirit behind me. And she had not heard the story that there was one here, but she correctly identified her. Um, and Steve says, fascinated by all of the subjects. That's wonderful. One of the best books sets of books I have in my library that is still in my library even after I got rid of so much of the library is the Encyclopedia of the Bizarre. Speaking of Oogie Boogie, um, but it actually um, fascinated me. It's a collection of stories from all over the world of unusual things. Um, some of them, all of them told in the most sensational tabloid style, but also true. And I've researched enough of them to say they're all true, at least in that someone said they happened. Now, some of those people may not have been quite so true. I don't know, but um, yeah, I think the world is a fascinating place, and the wider that you look at it, the more interesting it becomes.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the Encyclopedia of the Bizarre because it had everything from true crime to spiritual phenomena to UFOs and history, unusual historical things, and some of the development of modern spirituality that we pursue in the pagan world, for example, involves a lot of things that people have for whatever reason chosen not to remember. Um, a few people remember them, but I don't know how many people remember Anton Mesmer now. But in the 18th century, mesmerism was a huge thing. And out of mesmerism comes the modern practice of hypnosis and a lot of meditation practices and the examination and working with the energies of the universe, the bodily energy, the energy of everything. And at the time, that was called mesmerism, because Mesmer believed, as many people have historically, and many spiritual people do now, that everything has its own energy. And he really had a large following of people who were working with energy. And we look at some of the things they did and say, well, I wouldn't do that. But it was the 1700s. They were learning. But a very important part of the development of modern spirituality that most people don't know is there. People love to talk about Druids, but they rarely mention Iolo Morganwg, who was a huge Druidic revivalist leader of the 1700s. I can remember often hearing the idea that modern Wicca was descended from the Druids. And I actually believe that that is fairly true in certain ways, but they're the Druids of Iolo Morganwg, not necessarily the ancient Druids or other Druidic movements of that time, which were very large. The mother of George III, the Duchess of Q, was also an archdruidess. And out of one of those movements, and they meant it quite literally. And it's very interesting to look at those movements and what they meant by Druidism, which I personally think is closer to what the ancient Druids actually meant than some of the modern users of that term, because they meant the study of all things, and they pursued it in a very universalist manner. And what I have read about the ancient Druids certainly supports that point of view as much as any other for what they were doing. But that has taken us far from our subject, so we can write a book on Druidry, I suppose.
Let's add it to the list. Sounds great. And you were talking about the encyclopedia of was it Strange
The
Phenomena?
Bizarre.
The Encyclopedia of the Bizarre, and it reminded me of today I taught a lesson to one of my students who wanted a course on Texas, and so of course I had to add in the first crash of a UFO, which happened way before Roswell in 1897 in Aurora, Texas.
I know about that.
Yeah.
And speaking of things people have forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. That one is fascinating to me because there is so much evidence of sorts. I mean, there's newspaper clippings from that time. There's sworn statements from a judge. There's a lot of things that make me go, with that one.
Yeah. I mean, there had to have been something, because I do not count myself under the heading of conspiracy theorists, because I don't believe that any kind of large-scale conspiracy could possibly be carried out with any form of competence, because everything you look at just isn't.
Yeah, our government is extremely incompetent.
But something like that, I'm not necessarily saying that it was the crash of a UFO, but I believe something must have happened.
Yeah,
I don't think a tiny little town could have worked together to make a conspiracy. Now, I will grant you have the two girls who did the fairy conspiracy, but people didn't really believe that. Arthur Conan Doyle believed it, nobody else. And they finally admitted, no, it wasn't. But you have the guy who did the big footprints. Eventually he admitted, yeah, I made those up. Which doesn't mean that they all are. The crop circle guy.
Yeah.
And yet crop circles continued at a very wide margin far beyond him. And who knows who knows what all of them were. Maybe they were all people going out and doing it, but
if anything, that's kind of an interesting mass hysteria situation. And if multiple people, it kind of reminds me of like the spread of street art, but through cornfields and wheat fields instead of underneath bridges and overpasses. So yeah,
that's a very good point. There are so many fascinating things that as a publishing company we can work on in the future. as long as we know what people want to see,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
what our authors want to write.
Yeah, and one of our newest authors. Well, she's not a new author. She has a few books out before the one she did with us. But
She's
our
new to
newest,
us.
yes, she's new to us. Lisa McSherry. She has her book out, Travel Magic, and that one I find fascinating right now, especially because I'm planning my 40th birthday trip, which I think at this point will be a couple of weeks in Italy in late May. So it'll be delayed because I have to work at a local company here through April, and I
Mhm.
don't want to mess up the
Oh
contract or
no.
anything like that. So yeah, I will be delaying my birthday until May. I'll wait another month to turn 40. Uh, and her guide has been really insightful in making sure that the way I travel truly aligns with my pagan values about,
Mhm.
how do I do this in an environmentally conscious way? How do I make sure that I contribute to the local economy while I'm there, and it doesn't just go to corporations that hopefully trickle down a little bit to the employees, but not nearly as much as if
Mhm.
I just handed it to the local farmer or the local baker. And in addition to that, spiritually preparing myself for travel. I suffer from anxiety, and her rituals and her meditation tips for travel have
Mhm.
been really helpful with preparing myself for the moment of travel and getting into that mindset of um, being, realizing that this is an adventure. This is
Mhm.
something the universe is blessing me with. There's nothing to be scared of with it. Yeah.
Exactly. And Tom asks if we've ever been UFO hunting before, and I have not, though I have studied that subject like so many other subjects.
I wouldn't call it UFO hunting. I definitely would, go out into like farmers' fields and stuff when I was a kid, and into the forest, and hunt for Bigfoot, or hunt for UFOs with my friends when I was a kid. But I was considered the weird kid, so.
And Mark says crop circles like expressions of art, like Christo. And yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's exactly what's being said.
yeah,
Uh,
very accurate.
if they're being created by people, then they're very much that same sort of thing.
Absolutely. And,
Um,
we don't really have to look for alien life to find alien life right here within our own community. So, you know,
and
everything
Tom
that's.
says that UFO hunting is very popular in Las Vegas.
It sounds like a good pastime in Las Vegas.
One of
I'm
these days, I'd
curious.
like to get to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've I read a couple of Dutch people went there a couple of years ago, and it didn't turn out so well for them. So I was kind of shocked though, because if an American had done that same stunt, we'd never see that American again. And yet these two boys are now safely back in the Netherlands after a small fine. So
Yep.
I find the level of difference between how Americans would be treated versus how Dutch kids on a vacation trip would be treated.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Um,
Lafayette says, "Don't get me started on crop circles. I believe it's actually Earth energies creating them, but I could be crazy. And I don't necessarily think that they're all done by people, but a few have definitely been done by people.
and yeah,
And
I think that's
yeah,
completely possible. Lightning burns or something like that, or it could be something like lightning, but that we don't fully understand. Absolutely.
but with that, I see we've come to the end of our half hour, and that went by really fast. That was
It
lovely.
did. It did. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's always a good conversation.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I will be back tomorrow. And let us close with our prayer as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives, and we thank you for all the wondrous questions that are here in this world, all of the mysteries, all of the things that make us think and make us wonder and keep us in a state of wonder as we go through this life. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and thanks. Knowing you're always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And may you be blessed now and always, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Blessed be.